I just want to try and get a bit of an understanding more from you as an individual, your thoughts and theories on why people offend initially. What causes somebody to offend? What are the motivating factors why somebody may commit crime?
Yeah.
Difficult question.
It's very difficult, but many of the inmates in Norwegian prison had a very bad childhood. They can have parents who had the drug problems, poor people. So many of the criminality are caused by money. They want money, and also they are drug addicts and need money for drugs. But I think many of them, if they are Norwegians, they have a very often bad childhood.
Sure.
Yeah. But we are also in Norwegian prisons have, I think, 30% of the inmates come from other countries. And many of them are drug smugglers. So we have a lot of people from Eastern Europe, also from Africa, and some other countries, but mostly from Eastern Europe, and
sure.
Of course Sweden. And
has there been an increase over more recent times with that, or is
no? I think it's
static
and stable. 30%. When I started in the 80s in correctional service, I think it was 30%, and it's the same now. So that's stable.
And with regards to the drugs, drug use in prisons is a big problem for you here or not?
Yeah, I will say it's a big problem.
Seems to be everywhere,
yeah.
Definitely for us in the UK. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what they call spice, like the synthetic cannabis. This is a big problem in the UK now because...
I'm not an expert on drugs.
Yeah,
so
yeah, sure.
I'm
But
not sure.
The reason why they use this particular one is because the drug testing, the mandatory drug testing, it can't find that particular drug, so they smoke it.
I see.
And it's causing a lot of problems.
Yes.
It turns people very, very sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have it also in Norway.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because drug, it's a big problem for the Norwegian society. Yeah.
But it's so interesting that, you know, your personal view on why people offend sometimes predates the birth of the individual that's offended. It goes back in family.
Yeah.
It's a generational problem that's presented because a lot of the UK system and the way that we tackle offending is we deal with what's sat directly in front of us. We don't look behind, which I think is where we can learn so much.
Yeah. For us, it's important to know each inmate, to know his or her background, and know where it went wrong, and try to help them with the things that went wrong. Very often it's a drug problem, and we in Norwegian prisons we have a lot of drug addict units, special units for drug addicts, where they get treatment from treatment people, and we also can send them over to treatment units outside the prison if they are motivated.
Sure.
Yeah. So we focus a lot on to have an assessment and find out what's their problem.
And do you find by working with people on a personal level and giving them opportunities and activities, like some of the amazing things that we've seen in some of the documentaries, that itself sometimes motivates people to want to look at their own addictions and help them out. As a contrast, again in the UK, we'll get people that have an addiction problem but because there's no more purposeful activity in the prison environment, the focus is all on the drug use.
Mm-hmm.
If they had so much more to do, the drugs becomes less appealing.
Yeah. Therefore, it's very important for us to have an activity for every inmate, every day, all day, from morning until normal work day. For example, in Halden prison, we have work for everyone, or school. So you get up in the morning and go to workshop or school, and stay there hopefully the whole day, and then you can go back and have not normal, but leisure activities in the afternoon. It will never be normal to be in prison.
Sure.
But we have what we call the normality principle in Norway. And that means that the prison shall look like society. The routines shall be quite like what you do outside. So we want to learn them good routines in their daily life. That's important for us. To get up in the morning, go to job or to school, come back, eat dinner, and our sport activities, leisure activities.
I think that's so valuable as well, because you've got so many people that are in prison afraid for release.
Yeah.
Because the transitional change from the prison environment, that institutionalised way, back into civilian outside world is too much of a jump. And I think that's why we see a lot of reoffending and people. It's not uncommon for prisoners to be coming up for their release day and within the last couple of weeks go and do something crazy to get themselves more extra time so they don't get released because they're afraid that transition. From what you're saying, the way everyone's being worked with so close to the outside world, the transition is much smoother.
Yeah, and I also think that the architecture, when you build a new prison, it's important that the architecture are quite nice. That it's not big buildings with a lot of inmates in every unit. I think you have to also think about how you build a prison, and also for example, not in Halden prison. I like to talk about Halden prison, of course, because I've been there so many years. We have a very nice nature inside the wall. We take care of all the trees, a lot of trees. It's a nice nature. But if you ask a prisoner in Halden prison, he will say, prison is prison. This is nice, but it's a prison. And it's a high security prison, lot of security, cameras all over, routines, quite secure. So almost every inmate will say, this is nice, but
it's serving its purpose.
It's still a prison.
Yeah.
And we take the freedom from them, and they miss their family, miss their children. So it's quite hard to sit also in a prison that are quite nice.
Yeah, it's a deterrent to deter them from the life of crime.
Yeah.
But if they find themselves at prison, it becomes a place for support and help, less than punishment.
Yeah. But I don't think in any country in the world have found another solution than prison.
That's right.
But in Norway we have started with much more community sentence than we had before.
Okay, how's that going?
So when I started in correctional service, I think we had 5,000 inmates in the prison system. Today we have 3,000.
Wow.
3,000. So it's gone down, and that's because we have a much more community sentence, and also you can serve your sentence in your home with electronic monitoring.
Yeah.
So that's going up,
and that's
the prison is going down.
And it's
very successful.
Interesting, because one of the things we're really focused on is alternatives to custodial sentence.
So that's we also measure the recidivism rate in the prison system and in the community system, and in the prisons. In the 80s we had 70% recidivism rate in Norway, 70%.
Yeah.
Today we have 25-30.
It's an amazing time.
But in community sentence we have down in 15%. 15.
Are you familiar with the IPP sentencing in the UK?
IPP?
Yeah.
No.
It's been abolished now. They don't no longer use IPP, but there's still approximately 3,000 IPP prisoners sentenced going through this process. But the worry is, because of the privatisation of some of the prisons in the UK, you find prisoners that are IPP, they're like the model prisoner, because their release is very dependent on their behaviour and their interaction. So by being such a good prisoner, there is instances where the powers that be doesn't want to risk releasing the good prisoner causing no problems to maybe replace them with a problem, because it can affect the stats. So I wondered if we was to look at the way you guys have done everything over here, where you are very human-centric, people first, punishment second. Could that possibly make a change to the IPP sentenced prisoners? So to summarise and make it a bit easier for me to understand, so I've gone the long way round. If the IPP sentenced prisoners that still remain in the UK system was to be moved into a programme which was more human-centric and a bit more about working with them as individuals, I feel that there would be an imminent release for these guys. Your work here and the consultancy you've had with the UK, has anybody ever discussed that with you to deploy your method in the UK?
No, I cannot remember because we don't have so much cooperation with the UK.
Sure.
Norway, UK is not. We have no.
Like a working relationship?
No, we have it with the US.
Yeah.
We have a lot of projects with the US, but not with England. I think we had cooperation, much more cooperation with England in the 90s in Norway. Because over there, for example, that we call dynamic security.
Yeah.
That we learned from England.
Okay.
We are using that.
You learned that from England?
We learned that from England.
Interesting.
In early,
I think we need to learn it back.
Yeah, early 1990. We was very much in England with students from the staff academy. Went over every year and was study trip there. And for example, this dynamic security, it was a prison governor in England. I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
But,
do you know which prison he was governor? Or?
Yeah, I can show you that name later.
Yeah, sure.
So I have the name in my office.
Yeah.
So, and that is a very, very important value in Norway. How we run our prisons today. That's the dynamic security. That means that the prison officer are much together with the inmates all day, in the units, in the workshops, in the leisure activities. So they are together all day, and that's a very important part of the security work. And that we learn from England.
So with that dynamic security, just to elaborate on a point that I noticed when I was watching one of the documentaries, there was a scene where one of the officers was speaking to the camera and saying, we had the prisoner, he asked me have I got children, I told him yes I've got children, they are the ages of say 5 and 6, and they stopped the conversation there.
Yeah.
In the UK, and I know from the documentary America has the same concern, there's the fear between the staff and the prisoners getting too close, too much information for the manipulation and the corruption. So when you're training the staff here with this dynamic security model, is there a part of that where you enable them the skills to not go too far, too deep with the personal information? How is that managed from a training perspective?
We say that you shall not be private.
Yeah.
Of course, you can be personal, you can talk about if you are going on a trip or something like that, or are you training, you can tell the inmate that, of course, but not be private, don't tell them about your private life, not go too far.
Sure.
So you have to stop, have a limit for what you are telling the inmate, of course. In Norway, they have to serve the sentence for 2/3 of the sentence, and we can release them, and we follow them up when they are released up to end of the sentence, but not after.
Okay.
So then we say, okay, good luck in the future.
For sure. And is there any continuity with following their journey where they go from there after they release the prison? So for the UK, there's a big problem with people that are successful with reform. They go on to be quite successful in outside world business.
Yeah.
But there's a stigma that they're afraid to talk about once I was in prison. So nobody can really get a metric or a gauge for how much success after prison has taken place. Is it the same here, or?
We have a cooperation with, for example, Red Cross and some Christian organizations who are following up the inmates after. We have the Red Cross have what they call the Red Cross network work, so they follow up after end of the sentence, and they try to help them to find new interests in life, hopefully new friends.
Yeah.
And so we cooperate a lot with the Red Cross, and they take over our work. So
on that note, I think where you were talking about stigma, so you know in the UK when people leave prison, it's really hard to get work, and even 10, 15, 20 years, it's really difficult. Is that the same?
no,
here? Okay.
that's not the same in Norway. It's quite easy to get job in Norway, also if you have been in prison, and even if you tell them that you have been in prison, and if you have taken some education when you are in prison, get some diplomas. For example, in Halden prison we have a workshop for cars, and there you can take a diploma to be a car mechanic. You can even educate to be a chef. You can be a carpenter. So if you have taken education like that, you get job. So also in Sweden and Denmark, I think we think quite the same, and we always say we want to release a person better than he came in.
That's the
Better
secret.
out than in.
That's the secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's very important that we help them. We have an assessment, of course, when they arrive at the prison. We ask them a lot of questions about health, about education, about drugs, about everything in life. So we ask them a lot of questions and try to help them if they if they didn't finish the school, we try to motivate them to do that in prison.
In the UK, I'm sure you're familiar, but we'll have like different tiers of prisoner, and they will support each other internally before they take anything to the staff or education. Is there peer mentorship programs here in Norway as well, or are they just doing it prisoners and prison staff?
Yeah, mostly prisoners and prison staff together. They try to, but of course they talk together. The prisoners talk together and give each other advice, hopefully positive advice. So, but it's important for us that they use the staff as mentors, as yeah, we have what we call the contact officer role.
Yeah.
And that means that every prison officer are responsible for 2-3 inmates each.
Just 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's special. But they also take care of the others, of course. But they shall follow up, especially 2-3 inmates each.
That's really reassuring, because the ratio is very, very different for us back in the UK.
Yeah.
And when you speak with some staff, why is the problems keep persisting? Many times they say the caseload is too big. We can't manage the volume.
And that's the biggest difference between Norway and the rest of the world.
If we kind of look at the key points of what's working well, I think your training is probably one of the first things, isn't it? Because then that underpins everything else. So but then I suppose it's not just the training, like you say, it's the staffing. So the staff ratio, having the right people, having the right training.
Yeah, the training is very important, and we have in this building we have the staff academy, and they have 2 years education to be a prison officer. So they are in this building for 6 months first, and then they go out to a prison and work there for 1 year together with other students, and they have some theory and practical work, and then they come back to the staff academy and have 6 months with theory. So first theory, then practical and theory, and then theory, and then they have the exam at the end, and that's 2 years, and they have to work in the system for 1 year, and then they can quit if they want.
So if I'm understanding that right, it's at least 2 years minimum before they actually have the full responsibilities as staff.
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years.
That is crazy in comparison to elsewhere.
Everyone have 2 years, and you can even take a 3rd year and get a bachelor degree.
Yeah. And what would that do for the individual? What's the difference there by doing the bachelor degree? Do they come in at a higher level with staff?
They be a leader, for example, and it's they learn, get more deeper in some subjects.
Sure. What's the thoughts on if somebody was a prisoner, they finish the sentence, they come out, they're released, but they have an interest in supporting the prison estate and they wanted to come back and work inside the prison? Has that ever been done in Norway, or would it be considered, or is that too much of a risk?
We have one special organization that they call themselves Way Back, and that's an organization with inmates, released inmates, and they can help go into the prison and start talking with inmates who shall be released in some months or some years, and
Sure.
can help them. So we have an organisation for that, ex-inmates.
Yeah, similar to the Alumni program that we have in the UK that I was part of. Yeah.
So that's, I think it's especially one organisation, and they call it Way Back.
Go on.
Can we just ask about, you've spoken before about your periods and the black, white and blue periods. Is that something that you still kind of have embedded, or?
That's a special program we call the retreat program. That's for very few inmates. That's
How many would be roughly? Do you know?
we have it only in Halden prison,
Yeah.
and it's every month. And normally it's 1 week, but we also have 3 weeks. So and it's only for 6 inmates.
6.
Yeah, 6 inmates per time.
Sure.
So during a year, we have maybe 100 inmates going through that program. Maybe not so much, but
Why such small numbers?
because it's quite expensive program.
Yeah.
So I think it's there for. It's and it's quite hard program. You have to be motivated as an inmate, and you go through 4 periods during that week or 3 weeks, and you start with a white period and go over to the black, and then to the yellow, and end up in the blue.
Mm.
So it's 3 different periods during that program. So the black is where you shall talk about, not talk so much, but think about what you have done in your life.
Okay.
And write it down on a paper.
Take like an inventory.
Yeah. So you have to think over your whole life and what's bad in your life, and write it down, and then you put it into an envelope, and then we burn up the envelope.
Okay, yeah.
And then you can, for hopefully,
Free the mind.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
Yeah. So that's simple.
There's a very clear, deep investment in the psychology
Yeah.
with the Norwegian system
Yeah.
as opposed to the
It's a
UK.
try to put back the bad things and look forward with the new hopes.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That's
well done.
important. Have new hope. Not always think about the bad things,
Mm.
but think about the future, and it's hope for everyone. That's
It's
important.
really, really powerful stuff.
That's important for us.
Yeah.
In Norway, it's
And
hope.
for them.
It's hope for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Hope for everyone.
It's like a monastery. So
Similar,
so
yeah.
you go into a monastery inside the prison, and you stay there for 1 week up to 3 weeks
Yeah.
in total silence.
Wow.
Yeah, I see this. I was
Yeah,
going to
he's-
ask you. This was on my
I
list
said
of
I'm
questions.
sending him.
Total silence.
He's
Yeah,
coming.
yeah. Hannah wants to put me there.
Yeah. Go into silence. Think about what you have done, and you can read also about it in the.
Yeah, well,
thanks,
good. Thanks for
yeah.
that. I appreciate these bits. Thank you. The thing with the whole monastery is that, was that taken from like Buddhist teaching? Was the foundation for that? Did that come from Buddhism?
No, I think it's more Catholicism.
Okay,
I think so. It's Ignatius.
sure.
Ignatius, they call it, the priest who found up these things. It's from the 1400 or something like that. It's very old.
It's very difficult for somebody to do.
Yeah. I couldn't do it.
No, I would struggle.
No.
I would struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to talk with people.
Yes, I'm the same.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
the same actually.
So, but it's very effectful. So they inmate like this program very well.
We had a few questions around
Yeah.
where you take your learnings from. So you've spoken about like the dynamic security come from England, and I think something came from Sweden. I read
The
something.
contact officer role.
Yeah. I mean, so where would you say your biggest influences, where we talk about this sort of model, where would your biggest influences come from?
I think the humanity, think about respect. I think that's not a Norwegian thing, but I will say it's a Scandinavian thing. Scandinavian. Someone is called talking about the Scandinavian model. That this way of run prison is a Scandinavian thing. So I think we have learned a lot from each other here in Scandinavia. And I think that we call the normalization principle, that we try to make the whole system normal. That you are going out, everyone will be released, and then you are going out to a normal society. You shall live like us, everyone shall come out and live like us. And therefore, and you shall live in a normal society. Therefore, it's important that you learn that from the start. So the first day we come into the prison, it's important that we focus on the release date. That we plan the whole sentence from day one until you are going out, and plan for the future, and that you'll never come back to prison. This is the last time you are inside. And that's important, that when they are in the prison, that we try to make this stay as normal as possible. It can never be normal to be in prison, because prison isn't normal. But as far as possible, I think it's possible to do some normal thing inside a prison. You can work, you can go to school, you can be together with people, have leisure activities, you can have sport activities, religious activities, so as normal as possible. And when you are released, it's much more easy to stay out. If you are motivated, you have to be motivated. And it's not the correctional service who are responsible for your choice. You have to take that choice yourself. So we cannot decide for every inmate what you shall do in the future, but we can motivate them. That's our job, to motivate, to be a coach. Yeah.
So, Are, the devil's advocate, yeah? If I was a prisoner here in the Norwegian system, and you was coming to see me in my cell, and I had no motivation, very depressed, couldn't find any hope, what is the first steps to working with me at that point? How do you find the motivation in me? What is that first step on that journey? What does that look like?
I will ask you, do you like your life as it is now? Do you like being in prison? Do you like sitting here and not think positive about anything? Is that the future in your life? Or and come up with some alternatives. And of course, if you have family, that's the biggest motivation.
Yeah,
So if you have children, think about your children. Think about what they are thinking now. They would like to have their father outside, together with them. That has to be the biggest motivation, I think. But if you don't have a family, if you don't have network, if you don't have anything out there, then you have to start find something you like to do. You have some interests in life. What could you work with something? Could you have some activities that you would like to do when you are finished? For everyone will go out one day, and what shall you do then? So you have to talk about give hope. That's the most important thing. Give some hope for the future. It's hope. It's always something to hope for.
Yeah, I get it. So it is very much from a coaching foundation from the very beginning.
But if drug is the biggest problem,
Yeah.
you have to deal with that first.
Sure.
I think you have to hopefully be motivated to stop using drugs, and that's very difficult.
Definitely.
That's the most difficult thing, I think.
Yeah, for some people it's been many years of addiction.
Yeah, and it's if you stop using drugs, some call it that they lost their girlfriend or something like that. So so it's very hard, I think. But you have to start if you want to have a future, and that's important that we try to that everyone can see a hope when they are going out.
So we spoke about family being very important for a driver. I agree with that, and I just want to touch a bit on the dad in prison model that you've got, because in a lot of the work we've done inside the prisons back in England, it's been mentioned by a lot of inmates. We wish we had that facility or that ability to do that, and it's not something that the UK offers. So I'd like to dig a bit more into that, how that came around, when, how successful it's been, and what the theory is behind it from a correctional perspective.
It's not many prisons in Norway either who have this father in prison focus. And in very, very few prisons we also have a house, little house, where you can have overnight visit. And we have that in Halden. And you can have your family there for one night or 2 nights. But before you can use that house, you have to go through a cognitive program we call Dad in Prison. And that program is many lectures. I think you have to go through that program for some weeks. And then in that program you are together with other fathers. So you discuss how to be a good father. So that's the main focus in that program, how to follow up your children. But that's most important for us. It's what's best for the children. If it's not good for the children to come into this visiting house, we don't do it.
Sure.
So we have to ask the authorities outside, of course, and of course the mother of the children, if they are positive, and if they still are married, the mother can also join, of course. But in many cases they are not married any longer. Then you can maybe have the grandmother together in this visiting house. But it's very important for us that this is for the best of the children. Focus on that.
And is there a staff member in the house with these guys? It's complete trust.
Trust.
And
100% trust.
100% trust. And how has that gone so far? Ever had any problems with it?
No. Any time. No. Never.
So by giving the trust...
But you have to behave, of course.
For sure.
During the sentence, during the serving of the sentence. You cannot use drugs and be a violent person. Then you don't get this. So it's for the good guys.
It's really good. But the trust is the key thing. But
the trust is the key thing.
What's nice is the trust is coming from the correctional facility first. Isn't it?
Yeah. But we have an interview with everyone who want to use this. We have this program, and we check out with the authorities outside, and so it's not easy. to get this program.
But it's there.
It's there.
It's a goal. It's a
Yeah,
milestone for the guys. Gives them something to work towards.
So,
And I think that's important, isn't it? Having different things to work towards. That's the motivation that we talk about. That is very motivating.
yeah, I think that's the most motivational thing. It's the family, and especially the children. And we also now have iPads where you can have visit on the iPad, so you can talk and see the family when you
Like a video call.
video call. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
But that's not special for Halden. I think that's all over the world now, using iPads.
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned when we spoke on the internet, I had the telecoms business, and we was moving into the in-cell video calls with the kiosks. One of the big things that utilises these kiosks is obviously education, because the staffing is the big issue in the UK. Too many prisoners, not enough staff. So they're trying to find ways to make the time more meaningful in the cell, because for some it's 23 hours. Not much.
That's not good.
No, it's not. And I think many people would agree. But to make that time better, they're looking for the easy, quick wins. Things like in-cell entertainment, in-cell education. For me, it seems crazy. They're going the wrong way.
Yeah, that's not enough. You have to come out of the cell.
So time out of cell
that's
is
important.
very
in Norway,
important.
it's or also internationally, they say 8 hours every day out of the cell.
Out of the
Mandela rules.
Yeah.
The UN Mandela rules say 8 hours and more.
Some prisoners in the UK system would be lucky for 8 minutes.
We have 12 hours normally in Halden, 12 hours outside. But some prisons in Norway also have 2-3 hours. Very old example. For example, Oslo prison, where I was governor in the 90s, they have a very bad condition, physical condition. It's a very old prison. So I think we also in Norway have a lot of criticism about this isolation, because not every prison managed to give them 8 hours.
And I think by having the more harmonious environment for the prisoners, the staff get the byproduct of that. They get the benefit of that as well. In the UK, the sickness rate is very high. Many people are off sick with stress and illness because they're under so much pressure.
Yeah, I think it's quite high in Norway also.
The sickness.
Yeah, I think it's 10%.
Yeah. I don't think that's as high as the UK, but
it's quite high.
It is, yeah.
Also,
I suppose the role is
very
different, isn't it?
I think because also these budget cuts we had since 2015 have done. When I opened Halden prison, we had 290 employees. Now they are down in 240. So 50 people less than when we opened. And that's because of the budget cut. So that's not good. No.
If you had to go back in time and do it all again, what would you change? What would you do differently?
When it comes to Halden prison, it's nothing. Because I think Halden prison is maybe the
Flagship.
most perfect prison.
I'd agree.
But we have one unit there where it's no workshops, because that unit it should be for custody, remand. So, but they also shall have activity. So that unit is not so good. So I will do something with that unit and have more workshops there and more activity.
When we speak about purposeful activity and activities, what do you think's been most successful? What do you think's worked the best? Because again, we've looked and you've got the music and the mechanics and things like. What do you think's really worked well there, or do you think just a mix of everything? Because
The mix is very
Yeah.
good. So it's a lot of different workshops, a lot of different possibilities.
Which would be like the most popular?
The most popular is to be a chef,
Okay.
to educate to be a chef. Very popular, and also car mechanic is very popular. So those two is the most popular parts of education, and we have a lot of normal workshops like the carpentry is quite popular. Yeah, and to work also in the library. It's a lot of places you can work. Also in the shop for the inmates.
What would the waiting time be if somebody wanted to join that program? What's the process? How long does it take to be accepted into it? And then
what program?
Take the chef for the example.
The chef.
To be the chef.
Oh, yeah. That's a school program. So you have to be from Norway. You cannot be foreigner because it's only for Norwegian inmates. So
Why is that?
because I think it's because of in Norway you have the right to go to school.
Okay. Got it.
You have to every up to high school level, I think it's what you call it. You have the right to go to school. It's a right everyone in Norway have. So therefore they are prioritized the Norwegian inmates because it's so popular. So
Okay, that's
therefore,
interesting as well.
So and we are educating people because the foreigner will be sent out of the country
Sure.
at once when they finish the sentence. So we want to educate people to get a job in Norway after release. So therefore it's that program
You're
is
investing back into your own community first as a priority.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
So that type of program is for Norwegians, and also the car mechanics and carpentry. So, but every inmate can work in a workshop.
How is it different here with employers that don't demonise somebody for having a criminal past? Have you got any thoughts on that? Why it's so different here?
We touched it earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, but I haven't thought so much about it because I think also Norway have changed quite a lot since when I started in the 80s. It was a total different correctional service. We had a lot of very many problems. We had a very high recidivism rate, 70%. We had much more violence in the prisons. We had very much many escapes from prisons. So
we had a couple.
yeah, it was a lot of scandals, and it was murder of two prison officers. All this in the 80s and early 90s. So that was nothing to show the rest of the world. So therefore, in the early 90s, we decided that we have to change the system in Norway. We have to change it. And therefore, we went over to England and find this dynamic security. We went over to Canada and find cognitive programs for different problems people have, violence program, and drug addict program, cognitive skills program. So we imported a lot of programs from Canada to Norway. That was also in the 90s. And in Sweden we find this contact officer role, so we steal a lot of good ideas from the rest of the world. And now the whole world is coming to Norway to learn. So we have learned from the world before, and now
it's very eye-opening for me, because to hear you say you've learned from us when we're in the problem we're in,
yeah,
something's gone wrong.
something's gone wrong.
Yeah, and if I had to place the chip on the bet, I would say the purpose of prison in the beginning was to protect the public from danger, right? Then they evolved, and I think there was so much financial investment in the build of these things, they needed to get the numbers in, so they start looking other areas. What I think's happened for us is it's evolved too fast, and they lost sight. Because you've got such smaller numbers, it's more manageable. Do you think you could do the same thing in the UK? If you was tasked, if the MOJ said, all right, please come to England and solve our problem. Would you fancy the challenge?
It's too big for me.
Yeah.
But I have the ideas, of course, but you have to start on the top.
Yeah.
And that when I'm talking about the top, I'm talking about the parliament and the government. So you have to start with the prime minister.
Okay.
And also the politicians in the parliament, because in Norway we made in the 90s a white paper that was discussed in the parliament about the policy for the correctional service in Norway. That was a big discussion in the parliament about where shall we go with the correctional service, what goal shall we have. And that was a very important start. But it was the politicians who started this discussion.
But you was involved at that level?
Yeah, I was a part of the working group who made this white paper.
Which I think was very important. I myself was involved in a white paper in England talking about reform.
Yeah.
Because of when Liz Truss was Justice Secretary. My experience from the journey gave some perspective and some value to that work, much like yours did. But it feels very much like at the parliamentary level, there's not enough lived experience of where the problems really are, and they're very dependent on people like me, yourself, to give the true account of the bigger picture. And they also look for the solutions within us.
But in Norway, they saw it was many scandals in the correctional service. It was a lot of escapes, it was a lot of violence, it was murder of persons, and it was a very high recidivism rate. So the politicians saw
that was under pressure.
We had to do something. It was scandals in the newspaper. It was the politicians who saw that we had to do something, and the governors, after this white paper was discussed, they said to the governors, change the system, and we started with a prison officer role. That was the start, to change the whole prison officer role, from be a guard, only a guard, to be a social worker. And you cannot think a lot of revenge.
No, definitely not.
Because I think in the US it's focused on revenge and focused, of course, on the victims. That's also important, I think, the victims.
Good point.
But if you shall change the system, we have also to focus on the offender.
Yeah. We have something, restorative justice. You do that here as well, where you will sit down the victims with the offender and work together?
We have restorative justice, but it's not the correctional service who do it. It is, I'm not sure what we call it in Norway. It's an organization outside the prison to come in and start to talk with the inmate, and then to the victim and try
Bring together.
to.
What's your
mix
thoughts?
them.
Does
I
it
think
work?
I think it's very good, but it's too small project in Norway. It's very few.
Yeah, see, in England,
Yeah.
it's very, very
it
big.
could be much bigger,
Yeah.
I think.
Mm.
So we do that too little in Norway. So I'm not sure why we don't focus on that, but I think they focus much on the young offender from 18 and down. They get this more than older offender.
Agreed. And while we're talking about ages of offenders, another barrier that we face a lot is if we're working with somebody young, they've got a whole life ahead of them, so it's less difficult to get them moving. If we're working with somebody middle-aged, they've still got quite a lot of their life to do, but a lot of the prison population in the UK is older community. Some types of offending as well makes it difficult for them to consider their next steps, so they lose the hope. Do you have the same problem here?
Up to 18 we have two, from 15 up to 18 we have two small prisons, one with 4 inmates and one with 6 inmates.
Unbelievable. And the
Under
next stage-
15 you cannot be in prison.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the next bracket is from
18 to 25, and I don't have the number, but it's of course more, and then that's also some gang problems with that young inmates, especially in Oslo. Not gang problems in the other cities in Norway, it's Oslo problem. But it's not a very big number. But
so if you can answer the up to 18, just 10 total, what are you doing with the people that are causing the offending different, that they don't need to go to prison? Because something's working very well if there is only 10. Because young people offend quite a lot, for us at least. I don't know if it's the same here. What is the process to deal with them? How are they, I don't want to use the word punished, but you understand, how are they dealt with?
we have a lot of alternatives than prison.
What would that be for those young people?
It's restorative justice, for example. Restorative justice. It's a lot of, they call it punishment for young people, not prison, but in probation and in this restorative justice system. Yeah.
Fantastic, that is.
And it's only the most violent one and the most crazy young kids from 15 to 80 who go to prison, and that's very few. It's 10 totally in Norway.
Unbelievable.
So
Well done.
alternatives is the thing in Norway.
So alternatives to
Alternatives
custodial
to
sentence.
alternative to prison.
Yeah.
So would that be the education, like the meanwhile you stuff?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Wow.
And child care also. That's the system outside the prison system. They have also institutions, the child care, up to 18.
So as in, so they're in care, so they haven't got parents. Do you have, because we find with our youth offenders, a lot of our youth offenders, where you spoke before about childhood family problems, we have a lot of young people in care systems, so they'll be in these big homes that are kind of managed by companies, or do you get a lot of that here? Do you have
Not companies. It's run by not private companies.
No, is it like
We don't
local
have
authority?
private prisons.
Yeah.
We don't, and also in the child care system, it's
See, the problem for us, the money brings the corruption.
yeah.
And a lot of the children's homes now it's a case you fill in the form on the internet, and within a few days they give you the license. You rent the house, contact the council, they send you the kids, you put them in there, and they're very profitable. So there's a lot of private landlords that have got property portfolios. They see this and they just put the kids into the houses because it's easy tenant and bigger money. But by doing that, they don't have the skills and the business to deliver what the children need. So then the kids start the re-offending, steal the bike, smoking the weed, burgling the house, with other kids in the house. So they become a gang. And then they progress.
So in Norway, crime is for the public sector, it's not private sector.
That's a key thing to keep control of it.
Crime. But of course in the healthcare system it's private. In the psychiatric hospitals we have private hospitals. But when it comes to crime, it's but I was very proud of Halden, and I like to show it to the world.
Yeah, well done.
So,
I would.
So
they should rename it.
But of course,
they should rename it.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ares prison.
They should.